Welcome to this explainer. If you operate in the waste management sector, you already know that tracking your environmental impact isn't just a regulatory checkbox, right? It is the absolute bedrock of your financial health. Today, we're breaking down exactly how to measure and report on the management of leachate and hazardous waste. We are going to get into the nitty-gritty of how to report your total toxic release inventory in metric tons, how to calculate the precise percentage of those releases that actually make it into the water, and how to accurately track the corrective actions you implement for landfill releases. To make sure we're all starting from the same baseline, every definition, rule, and formula we're exploring today comes straight from the SASB standards for the waste management industry. There's no guesswork here. We are looking at the exact specific guidelines that your investors and regulators care about most when judging your operational integrity. Here is our roadmap for today. We'll run through the ecological stakes, tracking toxic release inventory, calculating releases to water, reporting corrective actions, and finally, the bottom line. Section 1. The ecological stakes. Before we dive into the math, let's look at why getting this data right is absolutely critical. The standard really does not mince words here. Poor management of landfills and other disposal sites may contaminate soil, groundwater, and nearby water bodies. It's a blunt statement, straight from the SASB framework, and it perfectly outlines the severe environmental reality we're dealing with. Honestly, it's the entire reason these specific metrics even exist.
Because beyond the obvious environmental damage, failing to manage and report on these risks triggers a massive, dangerous domino effect. We're talking severe regulatory penalties, a steep drop in brand value, impaired future business prospects, and of course, massive exposure to lawsuits. Having accurate reporting is, quite literally, your very first line of defense. Moving on to Section 2, Tracking Toxic Release Inventory. Let's see how those ecological stakes actually translate into our first primary metric, which is commonly known as TRI. Now, before you can track a release, you have to know what the standard actually considers to be a release, and the definition is incredibly unforgiving. A release is any spilling, leaking, pumping, dumping, escaping, or disposing of a toxic chemical into the environment. It even includes things like the abandonment of closed receptacles. The big takeaway for us? This covers the whole spectrum. Everything from a sudden headline-making spill to the slow, invisible leaching of chemicals into the soil over decades. So who exactly is on the hook to report this data? The standard lays out very clear thresholds. If your facility has 10 or more full-time employees, is regulated under applicable jurisdictional laws, and processes a toxic chemical in amounts that exceed those regulatory limits, then, yep, you are on the hook. You absolutely must track and disclose this data. And your ultimate goal for this metric? Absolute standardization. You need to consolidate all of these various releases across all your applicable facilities and report the total toxic release inventory precisely in metric tons. Let me repeat that. Not gallons, not pounds, metric tons. This completely standardizes the data, making it super easy for investors to analyze your overall environmental footprint. Section 3, Calculating Releases to Water. Because, as we know, not all releases have the exact same ecological impact, so we need to drill down a bit further. Once you've got your total TRI in metric tons, your stakeholders are going to need to know exactly how much of that inventory ended up specifically in the water supply, since water contamination is such a huge hazard. Calculating the percentage released to water is a pretty straightforward formula. You just take the weight of your TRI releases to water, and you divide that by your overall total weight of TRI releases. Simple as that. Now, actually gathering that weight data, that can be complex, but thankfully, the standard gives you some flexibility. You can determine these figures using consistent, recognized methods. So you can use estimates of waste treatment efficiencies, your actual operating data, engineering calculations, or mass balance calculations. The secret sauce here is consistency. You just have to calculate your total TRI and the percentage released to water in a way that perfectly aligns with how you already report to your local regulators. All right, Section 4, Reporting Corrective Actions. We've quantified the mess. Now, how do we formally track and report the cleanup? First things first, we have to define what triggers a reportable event. A corrective action is defined as the control and cleanup of landfill releases of constituents that are detected at a statistically significant level above the established background level. So, in plain English, you don't report every time someone sweeps up a minor spill. You report when pollution levels spike significantly higher than your normal background levels, which triggers a formal, required action to clean it up and meet air quality and groundwater standards. These actions are highly operational.
We're talking real boots-on-the-ground steps. Things like measuring site-specific field data, installing brand-new gas monitoring systems, or conducting full groundwater monitoring. And that groundwater monitoring specifically includes practical tasks like drilling observation wells, obtaining samples, and running analytical procedures on subsurface contaminants. Pay close attention here because this is where reporting often goes completely wrong and leads to massive headaches down the road. To prevent double counting across different reporting years, which is a huge risk for multi-year remediation projects, you must follow this golden rule. You only count a corrective action in the specific reporting period in which it is initiated. If a major cleanup takes 5 years to finish, it is only tallied as a number in year 1. And furthermore, there's a really strict rule regarding scope. If you implement one single massive corrective action that effectively mitigates or fixes multiple distinct landfill releases or leaks at the exact same time, you still only count that as one single corrective action in your disclosures. While you do report the total number of actions, the SASB framework highly encourages you to provide deeper transparency to your stakeholders by disaggregating your corrective action data. You can break your reporting down by the size and geography of the sites, the specific toxic chemicals involved, the specific types of actions taken, or even the overall severity of the incident. This level of granularity is fantastic because it gives investors a much clearer, much more accurate picture of your true risk management landscape. Finally, Section 5, the bottom line. Let's bring all these technical, nitty-gritty metrics back to the big picture for your operations. By mastering these specific metrics, ensuring you have accurate TRI quantification in metric tons, utilizing the precise water release percentage formulas, and transparently tracking your corrective actions without double counting, you really aren't just checking compliance boxes. You are actively managing your environmental impact. You're proving to stakeholders that your operation is disciplined, tightly managed, and heavily shielded from those massive regulatory and reputational liabilities we talked about earlier. So I will leave you with this to consider as you review your own data systems today. How confident are you that your current tracking system is robust enough to capture every single hidden release while strictly segregating your corrective actions so you don't accidentally inflate your liabilities? It is a very fine line between underreporting risks and overreporting liabilities. Mastering these standards is really the only way to walk it perfectly.